Hey, stick around because we're getting ready to put some pretty cool stuff on this bike back here because stock bikes suck. Welcome to Stickbagger's YouTube channel. I'm Steve. Today, I'm going to be showing you two products that we're going to be putting on the performance bagger build back here. Now back here in the back, we got a 2022 Road Glide ST. So if you've ever looked at the ST models, they come with a heavy breather already installed, right? It's a 117. They gave it a little bit bigger breather than your stock boxed in kind of closed breather that normally comes on the street glides or road glides. So there's really technically nothing wrong with that breather, I guess, other than I absolutely hate the way that those breathers look. And there's just better breathers on the market that have more surface area on their air cleaner. So the more air that you can get in, the more air that can go through the motor, and the more air that you can get out, the more power you're going to make. And even with this heavy breather that they supply, Harley-Davidson even sells a larger heavy breather that gives you more surface area. But the breather we're going to be installing today is the Tab Performance Zombie Breath. Now this thing is sick. Now you know we've done a lot of Tab Performance videos on our channel. Absolutely love their products. So when we bought this bike, I automatically knew which breather I was going to be getting. Now this breather has an acrylic plate. We've got kind of like this skeleton on the outside here, and this blue right here is just the acrylic covered up with a film, and we're going to be taking that off later. But that's an acrylic plate that's on the inside there, so you can see the inside of the breather. So that's pretty cool, kind of a sporty look. Huge surface area right here on the K&N filter. As you can see, it's going to be sucking in air, being filtered all the way around that instead of just that little bit of cone that's on there on the heavy breather. So just one thing I want to talk about real quick. If you have an ST that has the heavy breather, or maybe you just have a regular road glide, street glide, or whatever, and you've had somebody put a heavy breather on it, you've taken off a few things off of that breather system that you need to make this work. So there's a few extra steps that you need to do. It's definitely not hard, and today I'm going to walk you through absolutely how to do all of it. And if you've rode Harleys before, you've probably heard about blow-by, right? It's the oil that comes out of the top of the motor, goes through the banjo bolts, and it's supposed to be redirected into the intake and then reburnt. And it doesn't always work that way, but the EPA tells Harley that they have to do that. We can't just spew oil out into the atmosphere, so they want it redirected right back into the intake. And that becomes an issue because you're running hot, or maybe you're running a little bit too much oil in your bike, and you get home and there's oil on the side of your motor and you're trying to figure out where it came from. Well, it's came in there, it's went through your breather, it's came out of the bottom of your breather, and now it's spraying all over your legs. So now in that same line of dealing with that blow-by, I also wanted to make sure that my acrylic plate in here stayed clean. I see a lot of people buy breathers with the acrylic clear plates on the front, and the first thing they say is, yeah, it looks good when it's brand new, but after you ride your bike for a while, that thing will be covered all in oil. Well, there's a way to fix that as well. So the second product we're going to be putting on today is the DK Customs Premium Discrete Breather System for the Twin Cam and the M8. It's everything that's in this package right here. Now, I will put links down in the description down below to the breather and also to the DK Customs system here. So what the external breather system does is it captures that oil and sends it down the line into an external breather instead of being shot back into your intake and then eventually filling up your breather and then eventually spraying all over your leg. But the DK system is going to pair excellent for what we want to do today to get this breather installed on this bike. If you have that heavy breather on your bike, it has different banjo bolts than the normal OEM banjo bolts. This breather system requires that you have the OEM style breather bolts, and we don't have them. So like I said, this is going to be very specific to this style breather. If you just have a normal box breather on your bike and you want to change it, check out Tab Performance's YouTube channel. They have a very thorough walkthrough on how to just take an OEM box style breather off and put this breather on. So in order to get that breather, we needed the OEM style banjo bolts, but the DK Custom Systems comes with the banjo bolts that have the lines that go down and out to an external breather instead of shooting back into your system. So enough talking about this stuff. I want to see what it looks like on the bike. So let's get the camera over here and let's start getting this installed. So the first thing we need to do naturally is get this thing out of the way. So pretty simple. The first thing we need to do is remove these three bolts right here so we can get to the two banjo bolts back here. We got a 3/16 Allen on these three here. So we're going to take these three out. So then we got three bolts right here that's going to release this backing plate from the throttle body. Get our two banjo bolts out. One other thing I want to mention too is you need to pick up this bracket. So having this bracket back on here is going to support it here and here. So it's going to give you more support from the engine over to the throttle body. So all of this weight just isn't just hanging on this throttle body. I'll include the part numbers on the bottom of the screen here. You can pick this one up from Harley. I bought this one on eBay for like 10 bucks. It's a takeoff that somebody took off to put one of these breathers on, and it was just laying around, so they sold it. So I bought it for 10 bucks. From here, we've got our electronics that run down to the bottom here, and this has a little Christmas tree prong into it, and it's actually stuck in one of the holes that we need to put the base plate on. So I'm just going to take this little tool here that's used for removing those clips. I'm just going to get behind it and actually pop that thing out of the way just like that. So now we can just lay this back in here like this. We just kind of push the wire out of the way. You want this to still tuck around the side of the throttle body. So this is going to go on just like this with the plate going towards the back. Little dab of blue Loctite on those screws when we put them in. So now we're going to take the back spacer for the breather. You can see it's got that notch, and that's for that little thing right there. We want to slide that over that, and then our 3 holes will line up with the 3 holes in the intake. So basically how this is installed, this piece goes on the inside, this piece goes on the outside, right? So you want to make sure all of this is lined up correctly, and then this goes on the bike with 3 bolts that go from the inside of the breather. It just all kind of sandwiches together. But once again, we've got that hole in the top that we have to address. So when I put this on with a standard box breather, you'll have the hoses that go from the banjo bolts and goes into a T, and then it comes over, and that single hose will poke down in that hole and redirect that oil back into your intake. We don't need this anymore. We don't want anything dirty getting sucked into this and getting sucked into your intake. But more importantly, we don't want whatever we're plugging this with to get sucked into the intake as well. So we're going to take this over, we're going to find a bolt, we're going to tap this out with just a simple tap and die set. Now, like I said, I'll leave a link to all of these tools in the description down below. So if you want to do it this way, you can. But I'm going to tap this out. I'm going to put some thread sealer on that bolt, and I'm going to put it through there and make sure that that thing is blocked off. You got the hole blocked off, and it's more permanent than taking a chance of sucking something into your intake. So now that we have that taken care of, I'm going to talk about the spacers that come in the kit with the breather. Now, these are the 2 spacers that you would use with the OEM banjo bolts and your OEM hoses that come up and go into that hole we just plugged. Well, we don't need that hole anymore. So we're going to be replacing those spacers with the DK custom spacers. I'm going to show you those. So here's the DK custom spacer, and as you can see, it has a fitting at the bottom of it, right? So the way that this goes together is you got this big hollow area here. The bolt goes through that. Then when you tighten it down, it seals like that. The oil comes in through the end of the banjo bolt right here, comes up in through this hole, comes up into that hole. It fills in this area, this void. It will then go in the void that's inside here and be redirected out with pressure down this nipple into your hose, into your catch can. And before you actually install this, you want to think ahead and know which way that you're going to want to route your hose. Where do you want your catch can? There's enough hose in this kit that you can put that catch can just about anywhere on this bike. Now, I've seen it done a couple of different ways, with the banjo bolt nipples going down, going under the breather into a T, from that T down into a single catch can somewhere back in here around the transmission area. Or I've seen them actually ran up like this at an angle over to a T underneath the tank, and then ran back and dropped back here behind what I call the firewall in front of your battery. So one thing I want to discuss real quick before you put your new banjo bolts in is chasing out these holes to make sure you get all the OEM, the Harley gunk crap out of there. That's the OEM bolt. If you can see on the back side of that, that white powdery substance that's on that bolt, and there's a lot of that residual powder and stuff in that thread right there. So we're going to add either a liquid Teflon on here or just a piece of Teflon tape, aka plumber's tape. Everybody usually has that laying around, so you can use that on that. But we want to make sure that we get the old stuff out before we put the new bolt in. So the threads on this are a 3/8 NC16, and that's what we have here. Now this is from a tap and die set. You can specifically buy ones that's just for chasing holes, but you can use your tap and die piece. And what we're gonna do is just kind of run it in there. We're gonna work it around, just run it in, run it out, run it in, run it out until we see that powdery stuff coming out. Now, if we look at it, you can see all of this residual crap that we just pulled out of there. Because if you put like Teflon tape on there and you have all of the OEM residual crap that's just caked into the threads in there, you're gonna take the chance of that being super tight or cross-threading it or just something goofy. So it's best to chase these holes out if this is the first time that you've taken these banjo bolts out and that hardly residual crap is still in there. So now we have our new banjo bolts in. It's going to redirect the oil from the motor through that banjo bolt up into this, up into a T, cross that line back into our catch can. Now inside this kit you're going to have two T connectors, exactly the same. One's plastic and one is brass. You don't need both, you just need one. So pick one you want. You can do the brass one for that look or you can do the plastic one. It doesn't matter. So inside the DK Customs external breather kit you're going to have this hose, and it is a ton of hose. When you're test fitting this, always make sure that you cut it long, because you have plenty. And if you cut it too short, you can't add any to it. So just make sure that you cut this long enough to go where you want to go, right? And then just trim it down from there. So we're going to go ahead and grab our brass fitting and we're going to push this in. So I basically want this in the middle right here. This T is going to go back like that, and I want that like that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of mark it with my thumb. And when I cut thick rubber hose like this, I use this little jobby right here. This is actually used for cutting PVC pipe, but it cuts rubber hose nice and clean. You don't have a bunch of scraggly crap on there. So we'll stick this in here. Make sure we get a nice straight cut. Just like that, right? Now inside the kit, you're gonna get these hose clamps. It's gonna come with it for these hoses once you get everything figured out. We've opted to go ahead and get the black clamps, so everything is hidden. We don't see those silver, just regular clamps on there. I think the black clamps are gonna look a lot better. So technically, I can cut another hose, the exact same size, and then it'll be even. So we can take our two even pieces, put a black clamp on it, go ahead and put this in. Give this hose a little bend, making sure we don't scratch the tank. But I want to get in here, go ahead and put a little torque on this one, so when I pull on it, it doesn't pop off. So just to make sure everything is correct, we got everything good. So that's fine. I'm not going to clamp this one down because I still need to put a hose on this one. Make sure we don't scratch that tank with those hose clamps. And quickly, no, it's not going to get hot enough up there to melt through that hose. So you can run that on top of your motor like that and then drop it back down in here. Come back down here and we get this hose on. This back here we can deal with later. Let's move on to installing the actual air breather now. Now we have to sandwich all three of these pieces together like I showed you earlier. So make sure you have that in. Inside the kit you're going to have 3 long bolts like this. I recommend a little dab of blue Loctite on those as well. Then we can come back here and get that one started. We got to put the blue Loctite on beforehand because we're going to pull this up into place, get our bolt through. Go onto the back side of the cover, make sure that we're all the way through that and into our hole. Very easy. Go down here, everything should be lined up. You may have to wiggle it around like that just to get it started. You don't have to put a whole lot of torque on these. You put a little blue Loctite on there, right? So just make sure that you snug these down. Now we're going to take the acrylic panel out. We're going to take this protective film off. Get that off. Make sure that the inside is super clean. We're gonna put it back in our cover, just like that. And once you get one started, it'll hold it the rest of the way. And we'll just work our way around. Once you have all your screws in, the breather is now installed with a DK Customs external catch can, so none of that oil is going to come in here and spray all over the inside of your air cleaner. And damn, I love the way that thing looks. So I just want to quickly go over how this catch can works, right? So what I'm going to do is take a 5/8 wrench, and right here on the top, you can see that it has a spot for a wrench. This is a cap and then the can. So you just want to hold the can, put your wrench on there and loosen it up. Your oil is coming down through this hose, comes down the middle of this bolt. It's like a banjo bolt that we put up here, right? It's got the hole down the middle, comes out this hole right here on the side. Then it makes its way down into this coarse foam that's down in the bottom. That's one thing that you're gonna wanna clean when you take these apart. You don't have to take all of this apart to clean it. You can, but I'm gonna show you how to do it in case you want to. But the biggest thing is getting down here with like a pair of needle nose or something and pulling that foam out, cleaning that every 5,000 miles or so, right? So how this system works is in the very top, you can see all of the vent holes. We've got oil and air and everything going in here, coming down to the bottom. The idea is to keep the oil in the bottom and release the air back through all of this and come out the vent at the top. So when you install this, you need to make sure that the vent holes are up. You don't want this thing laying down. You don't want it upside down. It's going to kind of defeat the purpose. So the vent holes go up. So what's keeping the air and the pressure pushing the oil from the foam in the bottom back up and out the vent holes? It's these foam pads right here, and of course these little baffles. You can see these little baffles got holes in them. So the idea is the pressure goes around this, the air has to get through the holes in that baffle. If any oil gets through, it gets caught by this piece of foam, and then you have another baffle, and then you have another piece of foam, and then you have another baffle and another piece of foam. So the air has to travel through all of that, and if any oil is getting through there, it's going to be caught by these pieces of foam right here before it comes back out the top. But we're going to run it up, over, down, and I'm either going to put it right behind my dipstick here. Of course, I could also drop it down right here to where it's easily accessible right here. So I'm going to cut it long and play with the different situations. Remember what I said earlier, don't cut it short, because once you cut it, you can't add to it, right? So we're going to cut it long and play with the different areas. So I've kind of figured out exactly where I want this. I'm going to take that, I'm going to put this on. And I think right there is going to be my best bet. I can always cut that zip tie, pull it out here where I can work with it, take it apart, clean it, and put it back, and I don't have to worry about any rattle. So that's pretty much it. Super easy install. The intent and purposes of this video was to show you the Zombie Breath breather on the ST. So make sure to check out both of those websites. Now, when it comes to the external breather, just about any Milwaukee 8 and a lot of the twin cams could stand to have that external breather put on it, whether or not you're changing the breather or not. An external breather is going to benefit you. So I'll put a link down below to DK Customs, to the discrete system that we put on this bike today, and I'll also put that link down below to the Tab Performance Zombie Breath breather. You can check our videos. We have a whole playlist on the performance bagger build, and these videos will be included in there as well. So make sure you check out those videos as well if you're thinking about building a performance bagger. If you have any questions on these parts or this install today, make sure that you put it in the comments section down below. I check YouTube every day, and I'll try to help you the best that I can. I'm going to get out of here and get myself back to work. I hope to see you in the next video, but until then, as always, be safe, keep your knees in the breeze. Thanks for checking out the video. Don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe popping up over here. And don't forget to check out the rest of the channel, because we have a ton of bagger related and soft tail videos on our channel. And to get you started, maybe you can check out this one or this one. Not really going to say anything else. You can Flip one of those and take it over to another video.